Welcome to our second annual AP Government Review for the freshmen of Alpharetta High School, the Rowdy Raiders of Alpharetta, the Rowdy Freshman Raiders. You guys get nuts, get crazy, and we need to get nuts on this test so you can all get an A and enjoy your holiday weekend. And we cannot do that without our trusty sidekick, Pork the Pig. That's right, Pork is in the house, and he is ready for you to get an A, and I'm ready for you to get an A. So, like always, if you go to my plan book, why don't you find one of these guys that I've already put online. I'm going to hold that there for a second while I take a sip of this water. Download it. Get ready for notes, all right? Because I'm going to go through all 5 of these guys so you can do well on your test, mini test tomorrow. 25 questions, multiple choice. 20 to 23 of them are about federalism, and then a few are about the Constitution. So make sure you kind of refresh yourself on those major concepts. But here we go. We're going to talk about federalism, which is kind of an extension from the Constitution anyways. Federalism was kind of a hybrid of the 2 other types of governments that we had that we didn't like. We had a unitary system of government, which is one strong central government. That was the king that we had to fight and kill. And then you have a confederacy, which is loose regional governments running everything. And that was the Articles. That didn't work. And then we have federalism. And federalism is a division of power between federal and state governments. So make sure you guys know that federalism is what we have, and it's a division of power between federal and state governments. And we kind of see some federalism in the Constitution, the original Constitution, as well as the amendments. The original Constitution, you see Article 4, what the federal government is telling the states to do. So the states have to have the same, these relationships have to be preserved. And so one of the things that the federal government tells the states is they have to give full faith and credit. It's called the full faith and credit clause. Full faith and credit to licenses, privileges, and immunities is the words, the language is used in the Constitution. Privileges and immunities such as a driver's license, a marriage license. I get married in Georgia. My wife and I moved to South Carolina. We don't have to get remarried. You guys are 16. You've got your driver's license. You're driving in New York. 18 to drive there, you get pulled over, you're not going to get a ticket for underage driving because they're going to give the full faith and credit to that privilege and immunity that you were given in Georgia. So that's Article 4. One of the things we have a lot of controversy with in Article 4 is same-sex marriage, because Vermont used to have a state law that said marriage can be between a man and a man, a woman and a woman, but Georgia wouldn't recognize that. They would essentially ignore the full faith and credit clause of the Article 4. And the reason why Georgia would do that is because of another article, Article 6, which is the Supremacy Clause, which says if the federal government interferes with the state government, the federal government is going to be the supreme law of the land. McCulloch versus Maryland, this is a case that uses the Supremacy Clause where the state tried to tax a bank and the federal government a federal bank, and the Supreme Court said that states can't tax legitimate federal activities. And the reason why that bank was legitimate was because of the implied powers doctrine, which is created by the necessary and proper clause. So we'll get more to that in a second. The 10th Amendment is something that is probably our best definition of federalism. The 10th Amendment says anything not delegated to the federal government is reserved to the states. So anything not delegated to the federal government is reserved to the states, which creates these types of powers, these delegated powers that only the federal government has. They're also called enumerated, F-E-D. Federal powers are enumerated and delegated. And you also have reserve powers, which are for the states, R&S, right next to the alphabet. See what I did there? You're going to use it tomorrow. I know you are. Some of you are looking at me all squirrely. JP, look at me. It's going to work, all right? JP and JD, you guys think it's not going to work. It's going to work. I promise you. I've been doing this too long. It's going to work, all right? You're welcome. Delegated powers, Article 1, Section 8. You know what the delegated powers are. I'm not going to tell you. Reserve powers, though, some examples of reserve powers. Education and elections, right? Georgia's supposed to be in charge of education, and states are supposed to be in charge of elections. That's why the 2000 election was so terrible, because Florida screwed it up. Last but not least, you've got delegated and reserve, but you have some delegated and reserve powers that run parallel to each other, right? Parallel. Oh, little dance move. Yeah, I'm pretty good at dancing. I don't do it a lot, so might want to save this video because it'll be worth a lot of money one day, because that's me. That's my dance move right there. Let me get it one more time. Watch out. Easy. Don't. That's really good. You guys are probably just calm down a second. I'm gonna give you a second to calm down because that was good. Okay, let's get back to it. These are called concurrent powers. When you have a delegated power over here and a reserve power and they just run parallel, like taxing. Federal income tax, state income tax. I pay them both. They're never conflicting with each other. I'm just paying them both, right? Roads, federal roads, state roads. Those are concurrent powers. They have the power to do both. There's one more set of powers that we kind of alluded to earlier. They're called implied powers. These are derived from Article 1, Section 8's last clause, the necessary and proper clause. McCulloch versus Maryland talks about the necessary and proper clause, okay? So make sure you know the necessary and proper clause because it creates these implied powers. In McCulloch versus Maryland, nowhere in the Constitution does it say the federal government can create a bank, but the Supreme Court said that creating a bank was necessary and proper to enforce other powers in Article 1, Section 8, like the Commerce Clause. And the Commerce Clause is later established and been used to give much more power to the federal government. One good case for that's Gibbon versus Ogden. The steamboat case, the federal government could give a license for a steamboat between New York and New Jersey because it's interstate commerce, okay? So concurrent delegated reserve powers. The next thing, dual versus cooperative, guys, that's easy. That's the cakes, layer cake. Federal government over here, state government over here, no interaction. Dual federalism lasted until the New Deal. The New Deal ends dual federalism, and it creates this creative federalism where they're working together, or cooperative federalism, where they're working together, also called marble cake. Now, those are both acceptable terms. You can use layer cake and you can use marble cake on your exam. But dual or layer cake, two completely separate governments, completely division of powers, kind of just going in their own little arc. And then you've got cooperative where they're together. That's the marble cake, right? Now, some specific types of cooperative federalism that we need to be aware of. Fiscal and devolution, and those are 4 and 5. Fiscal federalism deals with money and cooperation, and really how it deals with money are grants. Two main types of grants, block versus categorical. States like block grants because it's a block of money, a large sum of money, okay? And states can choose whatever they want to spend it on as long as it's in the same category. So one example that we would use is the Welfare Reform Act of 1996. States got a huge block of money, and as long as they spent it on welfare, it was constitutional. States prefer block grants. They don't like categorical grants. They'll take it because it's free money, but categorical grants are a sum of money that the government tells the states how to use it on specific things, right? So block gives the states a lot of discretion. That means they can choose how they use it. Categorical, not so much. Block grants are going to raise the power of the states. Categorical grants will probably raise the power of the federal government. But they won't raise the power of the federal government as much as these things we call mandates. There's a funded and an unfunded mandate. And a mandate is simply when the federal government tells you to do something. And if it's unfunded, that means you have to pay for it because they did not fund it. If it's funded, then they'll pay for it. Funded mandates don't happen a lot. Unfunded mandates are the ones that are important we need to know about. I gave you 3 examples. Americans with Disabilities Act, Motor Voter, and No Child Left Behind. Americans with Disabilities is the one that I would say know the best, and you see it every day. At Alpharetta High School, we have a elevator, and we had to pay for it. The federal government said you have to have wheelchair accessibility, and you have to pay for it. That's why we have an elevator at Alpharetta. It's for those with disabilities, the Americans with Disabilities Act. Okay, so you got grants versus mandates. States can refuse grants. They can say, no, we don't want to take the money. They very rarely do, but they can. They cannot refuse a mandate. A mandate is when they tell you to do something. Last but not least is this very important type of federalism that started with Ronald Reagan. He called it the devolution revolution. Sorry, I've got a really bland room right now. Here we go. There we go. Look, there's some little background. I'll do devolution like this. So you got the beautiful, I'm on some very romantic bridge right now with a big moon in the background and what appears to be a yield sign. I don't know why that's there. My mom painted this. Kind of lame, Mom. Just kidding. It's great, Mom. Good job. But devolution, revolution. Sorry. Ronald Reagan, he was a Republican president, and then Republican Congress kind of brings this thing into the 90s as well, but it's returning power back to the states. It's a way to return power back to the states. Devolution or new federalism, it's very important that you know that, and very important you know some examples of that, like the Welfare Reform Act of 1996. That gives power back to the states because it gives them a lot of money and says, hey, do with this what you will. And states now can choose how they're going to spend that money. Whew, okay, I did it in under 10 minutes, but that is your review session. Pork got nuts while I was teaching, and now Pork and I are going to go get ready for the long weekend just like you guys are. So best of luck, and I hope you do really, really well.